Hello, everybody. Welcome to Still Curious podcast. If you haven't joined us before, I'm just going to go into laying out the foundation of this, kind of the what, the why, the how, and the who. And what it is, it's a discussion, an open, no preconceived notions, questions, open conversation about genuine curiosity. We're just starting this. It has been a ton of fun, and I'm really excited about this conversation today. I just want to say that I set the stage here by saying that there are different types of curiosity. They differ in various ways. And the kind of curiosity I'm really focused on in this podcast is what I'm calling genuine curiosity, meaning it's more like being an explorer, where the explorer is destined, trying to go somewhere, trying to explore something, but the destination is less important than the journey. And obstacles or diversions are opportunities for new growth and new ideas and new openings. I'm just kind of simplifying this for now. That explorer type, open, no real goal curiosity, except the excitement of exploring the unknown, versus a really common type of curiosity now, at least that I see in myself and others. And it's more like a navigator, whereas the navigator has a pretty specific destination. Both types of curiosity are after understanding and knowledge, but the navigator knows exactly what that goal is for that knowledge. Why am I seeking this information? And it's for a fairly narrow and specific purpose. In my experience, that type of curiosity is more self-serving than other serving or relationship serving. So it might be me seeking to know that what I thought was right is actually right, or me wanting to get information to maybe convince somebody to come around to my point of view. So this is more of a navigator type of curiosity. I want us to explore the explorer. I want us to explore the explorer. I want us to just talk about that curiosity that doesn't have an ulterior motive except the excitement of exploring. My experience and my education in, say, psychology and even in high tech, I was in high tech before I got into the field of psychology and coaching. I think that we can almost never go wrong with genuine curiosity. And I'm thinking of relationships, for example. How what it's like for us, particularly now, to be in very different ideological camps, at least in the United States. I think it's happening in other countries, just as an example. And if I can approach somebody who has a different opinion than mine, maybe holds different values, and if I can engage with that person with genuine curiosity, it kind of dissolves any threat because I'm now just curious about that other person's reality, that other person's perspective. It's hard to do, but I think that it's really important for us as learners, as people in relationships and community. There's a lot of research. It's actually good for our well-being. It's good for our intelligence. It's good for lots of things. How we do it, it's an open, honest, like I said, free-flowing conversation, totally authentic, totally real. We don't know what's going to show up. I don't. I don't think my guests know. And it's that not knowing that I want us to talk about. What is it like to not know? What is it like to be in that state of genuine curiosity? And of course, I'm always really interested in how do we know when we are engaged in genuine curiosity? What does it feel like in terms of energy or in the body? And then what shuts it down? Things like that. I have invited people that I've known for a while, some for a very long time, like my current guest, people that I believe are genuinely curious people. And I thought, wow, what a great way to start this podcast. So my guest today is Solwazi Johnson. And Solwazi and I first met in 2011, I think. We were both drawn to a trailblazing, I would say revolutionary approach to working with the military. And that approach was called mindfulness-based mindfulness training. And it was created by Dr. Elizabeth Stanley, who's at Georgetown University. And we were both really drawn to it. It was life-changing for us. So we both continued to pursue aspects of that because it was a nonprofit and it closed in 2015, I think. But it was doing something really important. So Wazi and I met. We became trainers for that organization. We spent 3 months at Camp Pendleton working with reconnaissance Marines or Marines wanting to become reconnaissance Marines, training them in basically mindfulness and body-based somatic work. And it was, it was pretty incredible. So Solwazi has deepened. You've always had a very deep relationship to mindfulness meditation. It has continued. You teach today. You teach people all around the world. But you've done many, many, many things. I want to welcome you, Solwazi. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate it. My heart feels very full having you here with me today. And so I'm going to just turn it over to you to say whatever you'd like to say about yourself by way of introduction, or any reflections you already have about my opening. And we'll go from there.
First of all, thank you for inviting me, Colleen. This is just wonderful. I'm happy. I am honored to be here with you today. I'm really proud of you, Colleen. Look at you.
Woo!
So I'm
Podcast,
really
podcast.
proud of you. I love our origin story, how we came together, which is really important, what we were doing, and it's changed my life. So, and it continues. So I'm just really thankful for you and to be here. You said a lot of glowing things about me, Colleen. As a matter of fact, you may not have seen it, but I was actually blushing. But I like the quote. Now it's been attributed to Albert Einstein, but it could be one of these fake Albert Einstein quotes.
Yeah.
But you know all this fake stuff on the internet. But it's something like, I don't have any special talents. What I do have is a passionate curiosity, something like that,
Yeah.
which I think is really true for me. I'm curious about all things, but mostly, and I loved your discussion of the different types of curiosity. I just recently learned that there are different types of curiosity.
Mm.
I never really went down the rabbit hole before to investigate it, but I have done so, and I agree. I have a large measure, a big component of the explorer type curiosity. But I also found that I am what's been referred to as I have a lot of the empathic curiosity as well, which in my understanding, it's the drive to understand, thoughts, feelings, and inner lives of, it says people, but, myself as well. I'm really curious about my inner life, thus the
Mhm.
deep meditation practice. So I don't know. Where do you want to go from here? That's kind of what I got to say right now.
Oh my gosh, Solwazi. It is so hard to choose because when I'm listening to anybody, I have about, if there were thought bubbles, there would be about 20 question bubbles coming up. You know what popped into my mind, and this is going to come out of left field, I'm sure. I just remembered that you have spent a fair amount of time in South Africa teaching meditation, right? The reason that popped into my mind is I recorded a podcast with a fascinating woman who is a high level HR leader at a very large company, and she's from South Africa, and she grew up during apartheid, as I think she pronounces it. Her first job out of university was in the post-apartheid government. So I really was curious to explore with her. So I don't know if we want to go down that route, but maybe the link to curiosity is what led you to South Africa, and did you find that when you were there, do you remember something happening to your own curiosity? This is out of left field. You are not prepared for this question. It just popped up into my head.
What a great question. And again, my experience in South Africa is one of those really important kind of life changing and expanding experiences. So I'm so grateful for the time I spent in South Africa. And I have spent quite a bit of time in South Africa. I first went there because a friend of mine, a dear friend who is South African, her name is Nobantu. We were going through a community Dharma leadership training program through Spirit Walk. We were going through that training together. And towards the end of this 2-year training, Nobantu just invited the whole group. It's like over 100 people. Oh, anyone who wants to come to South Africa, please let me know, and you're invited. So I didn't know Nobantu that well when she extended that invitation, but when she did that, I was like, I went over to her and said, "Hey, I'm in. I'm coming to South Africa. I did, and she was the greatest host one could ever hope for. Two of my teachers, Kitty Searle and Tanisra, they had a meditation center, a hermitage down in South Africa, where I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time and to teach. South Africa is an amazing country in its beauty, the diversity of beauty. I mean, everything's there. It's a really complicated
Mm.
society right now, multiple levels of complication.
If we have the opportunity, I would love to know, because this is kind of what I'm trying to get at in each of these conversations, is how people recognize when curiosity is really strong, really present. Because in that moment when she extended that invitation, something in you, not just mentally, but physically in your body, there was like a thrust or an urge or a drive to say, yeah, I want to do that. That's genuine curiosity. That's a huge unknown.
I remember hearing about it, the possibility of going to South Africa and being there in a way that is totally the best way when you go to a place that's different and you're there with someone who's from there, that place, and you're invited in. So I remember when I approached Nobantu, yeah, I was having a response. My heart was beating with excitement. So this was good stuff. My heart was beating faster, probably other things going into place, but I do remember rapid heartbeat and just excitement. So there wasn't any contraction in the moment. It
Mhm.
was really an expansive kind of feel. This excitement was just, yeah, really expansive. I wanted to do this thing. So it's like, and my thoughts were kind of racing and, planning ahead and just imagining, myself in South Africa, the mother country, and just so it was that kind of experience for me.
Thank you for that. That
Yeah.
satisfied my curiosity on that point. You have great stories. We could just talk
Well,
about your stories in different countries, but
so I want to share this with you, and I hope you'll ask any clarifying questions about this story because there are multiple layers of complexity here with this story. After I'd been to South Africa and left, and then I went back again, a few months later, I was invited to teach at the meditation center. I was invited by Kitty Sorrell and Tanisara to lead the meditation retreat. I was so excited about teaching this retreat and sharing these teachings with people who may not have ever been exposed to these teachings. And I'll be teaching at the foot of this part of South Africa that was Zulu, homeland,
mm,
and at the foot of Mount Imvulini, which it was said that the great warrior Shaka Zulu and his warriors used to run up this mountain barefoot. And it's just amazing the feeling and the energy that I brought. Here we go, the energy, really, this feeling of expansiveness and excitement and anticipation and teaching, sharing my with my people in this room. So the very first day I set up and we're going to start. I go in and I sit down and people are gathering. And then I notice this didn't quite fit my vision of what I didn't expect this. So when I looked out in the room, it was, mostly white people, mostly white South Africans.
where are my people?
Where's my people? And I guess I should have known. Maybe I had been told, or just
That's
from my
funny.
experience in mindfulness, who has the
Mm,
resources to do this, who's been exposed. Typically, it's folks with money and the resources and so forth. But I looked out and it was white folks, and not the white folks I'm used to here in the US. It was the South African white folks with the
wow.
accents, and it really things came up for me, all the stereotypes and all the kinds of things that I thought about what a white South African was. I was informed by the apartheid, experience and Botha and all just this really the
Yeah.
heinous form of apartheid. Then I look out and it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I remember this really clearly feeling contracted around this. Can I really show up fully and share these teachings with these beings in the room. So I really had to look at it and work on letting go of these stereotypes I had and
Yeah.
meeting people where they were, where I was. One of the things that supported me in doing that was my curiosity, letting go of judgments that were coming up. And you hear that all the time. Oh, just don't be judgmental, let go of that. But what do you
Mm,
do with that? There is this vacuum that is created. So what do you do instead of judge? Well, for me, I replaced it with this curiosity.
mm,
Who are
mm.
these people? Why are they here? How do they feel about this black guy? Because they have all these layers of
Yeah.
complexity and stuff coming out of their culture. How are they feeling about me as the teacher? And on and on and on and on and on. So I brought interest and curiosity to my experience. I became, again, this sense of empathic curiosity. I was curious about them and their life journey and so forth. So it turned out, Colleen, that this, to make a long story even shorter, that this was such a wonderful experience when I leaned into the sense of curiosity. How did you become who you are? And all those kinds of questions. There was just such a deep connection that I had
Mm,
with the group. There was such a deep for me, and I think for the group, I will say for the group as well, as evidenced by how they opened up and we connected, that they felt this something similar. So there was a sense of trust, there was
wow.
sincerity, there was people wanting to heal. And
Mm,
what I found, Colleen, that I never had an appreciation for, there's so much pain in white folks in South Africa. It's I mean, and
wow.
all over, but it's
Mm,
clearly their experience, because all I heard was kinda one side of it, and it's true, apartheid was just horrible. There's a lot of pain in the white community as well, and I actually, from that experience, I became really good friends with, this South African, gentleman who worked at the meditation, center. What a beautiful being he was, and he used to fight in the South
mm,
African army
wow.
and served in the South African military, but he talked about how,
Mm,
you know, the complexities of being white in South Africa, so I learned a lot from it. So you probably got a whole lot
mhm.
more than what you were bargaining for with this story, but
Uh,
Colleen,
I really appreciate that. You're right. There are many layers. My heart, my brain, my mind, my body, it's just like, oh my gosh, this is rich. And I want to just sort of first put a pin in and really one of those, like when we were training, we're like, this is a foot stomping point, which we used to have to do a lot with those Marines. The fact that it was your engagement with your genuine curiosity that opened up so much more than maybe you could have even imagined, that it just and it had the snowball effect, it sounds like to me. What kept coming to my mind as you're speaking about this is how many lives were changed in that room that day because of an opening. And I don't think that's overstating a possibility. Sometimes it takes the door or the window just cracking a little bit. And so I really thank you for sharing that because I it's a good illustration of the power of curiosity. And so I haven't heard that story. I'm really happy you shared that. So I'm really happy I asked about South Africa. I'm curious if it may not be possible to transport yourself back to that moment and really recall, but you might your answer might come from, and I suspect you will have a response, will come from a history of engaging with your curiosity. But in that moment, which many of us feel when we're facing massive uncertainty, fear, certainly expectations that have not been met because I was all ready for one group and I'm getting a totally different one, and all of the ideas I have about this group. So I assume there was fear in there. Fear because it it was an unknown, and I think unknowns generally produce some level of fear. Maybe I'm wrong, but whatever you were experiencing, if somebody were to ask you in a situation like that, Solwazi, how can I access my curiosity? What
mm,
what would you say? How would you guide somebody? I mean, that's a
okay.
big question.
It is a big question, and I will just share with you because I remember it clearly, and my response to threat or just major stressors, my default response, and this is not something I'm proud of, but because it goes against, what a man is supposed to be and the warrior and all this or that, but my response, default response is not to fight, but to flee.
Mm.
So my initial response, and I didn't say this because it happened so quickly, it's, automatic. It's like, "Oh shit, I gotta get out of here. We
Out,
can't
where's the
do this."
door?
And then it's like, "Okay, okay, yeah, this is what's happening." And then I gotta ground myself. So, just go
Mm.
to really
Mm.
grounding myself in the moment, and something that well, Colleen, you happen to have a book out on it that it the interoceptive awareness just really, really leaned
Mm.
into feeling my butt and my feet and the sensations and the inner sensations of that. That really helps to ground me, and I can remember, again, this is my way, just grounding myself and then, feeling the release, yawning, and then it's okay,
Mm.
let's get to work. But yeah, having to ground myself in the moment. And I remember because I trained to be able to respond in this way.
It's very interesting. Even though that's what I do, and we're trained in that to do that, and I teach people to do that, that is not what I was expecting you to say. It's like, it's some wisdom. That was wisdom, but it was I don't know. It just I love that because the simplicity of it is what I'm constantly trying to impart to people is just ground because it makes all the difference in the world. It takes a minute, it takes 2 minutes because it settles the whole threat response in the nervous system. And so that's really great.
And
Oops.
that would be my what I would share with someone is to ground
Mm.
yourself and to practice this because it's hard to
Yeah.
do in the moment if you haven't practiced it. It's like, "Oh, how do I do this grounding?" So you need to really practice it. So you're intimately, familiar and acquainted with what this tool is and
Mm.
how it can serve you, the grounding tool, but you really need to have the practice under your belt, so it's available to you in that moment.
Of course, that leads me to another question related to this. And I want to ask it, and I really want to ask about your t-shirt because I wonder if that did it say Baba?
Oh, it says,
Papa, Papa.
Papa.
Yeah. Oh, Papa, because Grandpa is for all God. I love that.
Yeah.
As you were telling your story, I jotted down, I can see you with your grandkids enthralling them in stories because you are a great storyteller.
You know how it is with the kids. Hey, don't that's Papa Wazzy. Oh, here he goes again.
Oh,
Another story.
yeah.
Here's a little diversion here, but this moment I'm remembering going back to Mind Fitness when we were training and will be the room in the very beginning in the room of us soon to be trainers practicing these skills of grounding, and we're all going through various forms of release. Some of us were yawning, tears, others twitching for that's just such a wonderful memory of us in this group and just releasing after having,
Yeah.
some stress activation. Do you remember that stuff?
I certainly do. And again, that is one of the reasons it was so, so life-changing. Well, lots of reasons. Okay, here's the path I would love to follow. I'll ask it, but before I do, I'm going to say you may not want to answer it. We may want to save it for a second podcast. And there may be something else that you really would like to say before we wrap up about curiosity, because my goodness, I could talk for hours with you. The question that was forming for me around the grounding and around the story you've shared and around the fact that it's so simple to ground, but people need to know that they need to practice it when they're not super freaked out and in threat mode. They need to practice it so regularly that it becomes available and is effective when they really, really need it in those moments. I'm curious, as a very experienced mindfulness meditation teacher, why you believe or find that people resist, because I find that there's a natural resistance to these techniques, to these practices.
What a wonderful Absolutely wonderful question. My the response that's coming up for me is I don't really know. I really want to think about it more. But what I will say is, and again, this is something that I think I learned from Liz, is when, as a teacher, when I notice the resistance from someone, from these tools that I know they are effective, but
Yeah.
look at you resisting. The important thing is to not resist their resistance,
Oh, that's great.
remember that? To kinda
Yeah.
be with, to observe,
Mhm.
to work with that, and not to add
Mm,
any more energy to it.
that's great.
And for me to know, so I can't really know what's going on for this person, but what I do know is in the moment, what I'm doing is planting seeds, giving this information, and ultimately, I know it's their choice if they want to cultivate these seeds. So for me, it's about giving up
Mm.
control. There's resistance here. Now, I didn't do that really well for lots of reasons with the Marines, but it's something that I have truly learned the hard way is to give up any control and know that I'm planting seeds and trusting that people will come around to this when and if it's right for them. So my responsibility in the moment is not to figure out, "Oh, why the hell are you resisting?" But it's
Mm.
doing what I do and trusting that they'll get out of this whatever they need and maybe come back to it, loop back around, years from now. Who knows? Who's to
Mhm.
say?
Thank you for that response. And what that's bringing up for me is I need to write down when the next beginning of your mindfulness meditation class is because I need to go learn from Sawazi. No, I need to. I've been wanting to do a retreat. It's been a long time, and I thought I need Sawazi to lead a retreat. Oh my gosh, so many questions, but I know I have to wrap up. I don't want to wrap up. I really don't. I'm resisting wrapping up. I do have one last question. Oh, so hard. I'm wanting to weave in obviously the theme of curiosity, the story that you told being in front of the room or us in front of the very resistant Marines who were going to recon school in that example, or anybody that we sense is resisting. How do you sense in your body when something has shifted in the room or with somebody you're talking to? I'm asking you really hard questions.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Colleen. Thanks a lot.
Because I know how I sense it, but I'd love to know because you've been doing a lot more meditation teaching than I have since my fitness closed. I'd really love to know how you sense that shift.
Ok okay, and thank you for the questions. They are difficult, and they require a multi-level kind of response, so complex
Mm,
questions aren't always well, maybe the best response is the simplest response, but I haven't learned how to do that, so complex questions, I tend to have complex and multi kind of responses.
yeah.
First of all, being somewhat of a empath, and I'll just really throw that term out there kind of loosely, but I do pick up on the energy of resistance. So for me, it was really important that I recognize that, man, I'm picking up on stuff. When I would pick up on stuff, the tough part is sorting out, okay, what's mine and
Mm,
what's in the room. So that's
yeah.
still challenging, just sometimes figuring out, is this my stuff or what's going on in the room? So but I will say here that certain contractions, especially kind of in my shoulders, vocal cord contraction, when I'm picking up on something, there's some kind of
Mhm.
response to something going on. I feel contraction in my vocal cords and my voice, mind kind of racing. There's something, I'm responding to something. Sometimes it's clear the people in the room is like, the Marines, I don't wanna do this shit, the turning around, the guy in the back who's, like, looking at me
With a
really
knife, what was he
defiantly,
doing? He was banging it into the desk.
a big Bowie knife and looking really defiantly at me, like, with the knife, and it's like, "Okay." That's clear what's going on. There's
That's
resistance.
resistance.
Methinks there's resistance. What was your question again, Colleen? I'm
Oh,
going off.
it's so no, I love that because you started to answer my question with a very important piece, which is I asked basically, how do you know when there's been a shift in the room? And I was implying, but I don't think I said toward less resistance, like that group in South Africa. But it was important for you to start, and I appreciate you tuning into that interoceptive piece of this is what happens when I sense it. So I guess for you, is it the opposite? The throat releases, the chest is less constricted. Is there anything else that you notice that
Eh,
happens for you when things are less
yes, yes,
resistant?
yes. So it happens for me, the yawning, sometimes the
Mm,
tears, just the more openness, and these are the very same things that I recognize when it happens in the group. That used to be when I saw people yawning in the back of the room, I would think, "Oh, man, I'm boring them to tears." Now I have a different understanding. It's like, "Oh, yeah,
yeah.
good release." They're releasing. What another thing I noticed there tends to be just the sense it's more settled and quiet. Where at the Marines, there was a lot of jumping around, knee bouncing after 50 million energy drinks, they're all over the place, they haven't slept and whatever, but then there's this sense of, like, just settling and more quiet, and you can really feel the shift of the energy in the room, the settling in. So I will take that as less resistance.
Yeah. As you're describing that, I feel it, and that my immediate thought was, yes, that was true, and that this is why these techniques are so helpful for really high stress populations like the Marines that we were working with. But my mind went to teachers and how useful this would be because if teachers are trained in this, they can really help the kids downregulate. And okay, last question. I know we're over, but oh my gosh, I want this to go over. I would like for the listeners, the viewers to know a bit more about you. And this question I think will give them a window into the complexity of you and the flexibility of you. You used to be in the Navy.
Yes,
You were a
yes,
medic, right?
yes. Hospital corpsman in the
Hospital
Navy.
corpsman. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Yes, of course. I forgot my lingo. Shame on me. Oh, I was thinking army. What you're sharing with me today, these capacities, these essences, this awareness. Yes, it's been cultivated and nurtured through mindfulness meditation, all of the thousands of hours you've done in monasteries and on retreats and teaching. People will listen to that and say, "This guy was in the Navy?" What part of Solwazi that came today do you remember also being present and available in the Navy if there was that part of you?
Yeah, yeah. So don't let me get away with not answering your question, but this is my approach. So if it's not answering your question, you call me on it. The Solwazi that was in the Navy came into the Navy with a pretty scrambled nervous system. I was pretty functional, but I was aware that something was wrong with me, and I have since learned that nervous system dysregulation. So that was the Navy guy. The military just has ways of just amplifying that by leaps and bounds. So what you just described, the thousands of hours practice and on retreat, and all this has been an effort towards healing and kind of balancing my nervous system. But I still feel from time to time the remnants of being back in the Navy, with that old nervous system that's still kind of there, components of it from times, and it's really familiar. When I'm activated, that initial activation, that feels really deep and familiar. That's what I'm gonna say. I'm not sure if that answers your question at all.
Yeah, well, again, as an explorer today, I did sort of have a destination, which is I'm curious about that part of you that showed up today, who you are now. That person was in you before. It was just scrambled, is what I heard. Because
Yeah.
it's the same nervous system. It's just more, it's coherent now, it's regulated. It's just not in the same state. As an explorer, I had no idea where that would take us. In fact, I had no idea I was even gonna go down any of these avenues today with you. Honestly, I had a whole other idea about what I might ask. And I'm grateful to you for just being an explorer with me.
And let me just say really briefly, just another thing that's coming up about my military experience is the curiosity was absolutely there. As a result, I was just never satisfied with doing the typical things that young, dumb,
Yeah.
testosterone filled guys did, just drinking and going to bars and all that stuff, which I will not name. So I did my fair bit of that, but I was always curious about, hey, I'm in this foreign land. What could I go and see? I'm in this different place. What's off here?
Mm.
So I was ever the explorer.
That's a beautiful place to end, although I do not want this to end. There's just so many things to talk about. I'm just grateful. I this is one I'll definitely listen to many, many times. And I think there's a lot in this conversation for a lot of people, a lot of people. I think that's true for every conversation, but I feel this one can touch a wide spectrum of ideologies, experiences, beliefs about themselves, beliefs about the world, right? So thank you for your wisdom. I mean that sincerely. Anything else you want to say, add?
Thank you so much for this
Mm,
opportunity, Colleen. I will just go back to my experience in South Africa. Like I said before, I went back many, many times, and I did have the opportunity, along with my dear friend Nobantu. We did teaching for different groups of people. We touched and reached more Black South Africans and just a whole range of people, but we were able to touch in that community in, I think, ways that were meaningful and still rest with me. Are dear, great experiences for me, and teaching along with my buddy Nobantu kind of reminds me of co-teaching with you and some of the other folks. There's nothing like the
yeah.
experience of teaching is great, but co-teaching with someone else who you trust and value, and there's value added. It's such a great experience. So I'm reminded of my experiences teaching with you.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate the memory of that. I hold that really dearly. And the thing that I'll wrap up with is I think what you just described as that co teaching and that sharing and that bonding and that the relationship, what's going on between teachers who are really in sync is it's shifting everything in the room and it's affecting the nervous systems in the room and it's modeling. So I think it's powerful at so many levels. And I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you, my dear friend.
You are welcome.
So glad that we've reconnected and a next podcast, which I know you haven't said yes to, but I'm going to be working on it. Took me a while to convince you to do this one. Thank you, my dear friend Solwazi Johnson.
Thank you, Colin.
Have a great day.